There exists a silent, heavy moment that many adults will never speak of openly. It is a moment of profound isolation. Perhaps you are sitting in your car, the engine cold, your hands gripping the steering wheel until your knuckles turn white. You are staring at the house where you grew up, looking at a door you have walked through 1,000 times. But in this singular, trembling instant, you realize with absolute clarity that you cannot walk through it again. It is not a decision born of sudden malice, nor is it a tantrum. It is the realization that something vital inside of you has finally shattered, and it can no longer be mended within these walls. Choosing to sever ties, going no contact, is perhaps one of the greatest taboos in the human experience. We are conditioned from birth to believe that family is an immutable law. We are told that blood is thicker than water, that you only get one mother, that loyalty to one's kin is the highest moral virtue. In a culture that treats family access as an unconditional right, stepping away feels less like a choice and more like a moral failure. It feels like a betrayal. It feels like a sin. And yet, despite this immense cultural pressure, researchers estimate that more than a quarter of adults in the United States are currently estranged from at least one family member. Millions of people have looked into the eyes of the very people who gave them life and quietly admitted, "I cannot survive you anymore." The question we must ask is not why they are leaving, but rather, what is the specific texture of the pain that makes such a forbidden choice the only option left for survival? To understand this, we must look past the surface. Estrangement is rarely the result of a single explosive event. We tend to imagine that families break apart over dramatic inheritances, shouting matches at holiday dinners, or unforgivable insults. But in reality, the end of the relationship is almost never caused by the final straw. It is caused by the 1,000 straws that came before it. Family estrangement is a slow psychological erosion. It is a quiet weathering of the soul that spans decades. It begins with the micro-interactions that you learn to overlook, the subtle dismissal of your reality, the jokes that are actually barbed criticisms, the way your emotions are minimized to make room for theirs. Individually, these moments seem manageable, but accumulated over a lifetime, they create a landscape of chronic, low-level terror. You learn to make yourself small. You learn to suppress the tightening in your chest when your phone rings. Psychologists refer to this as death by 1,000 cuts. It is not the severity of the blow that breaks you. It is the repetition. Eventually, a day comes where a boundary is crossed, perhaps a small one that has been crossed 100 times before. But this time, the script changes. Not because they have changed, but because you have. You realize that the relationship has been dead for years. You are simply, finally, stopping the performance. In healthy family systems, there is oxygen, there is differentiation, a psychological space that allows the child to be a separate entity from the parent. There is room to disagree, to feel differently, to grow into a distinct individual. But in enmeshed, toxic dynamic, that space is non-existent. Love in these families does not feel like support. It feels like consumption. It is a suffocating closeness where boundaries are viewed as betrayals. The parent in this dynamic often views the child not as a person, but as an extension of themselves. "I know you better than you know yourself," they might say. When the adult child attempts to separate, to choose a different career, a different partner, or even a different emotional reaction, it triggers a primal panic in the parent. To them, your autonomy feels like abandonment. The child is then left with a devastating binary choice. I can possess this relationship, or I can possess myself, but I cannot have both. Before the silence of no contact sets in, there is almost always a desperate, invisible history of trying. Psychologists call this the reconciliation cycle. It is a heartbreaking loop of hope and regression. The adult child, longing for connection, tries to explain their pain. They write careful letters. They curate their tone to be as non threatening as possible. For a fleeting moment, the parent may seem to soften. There is a truce. But inevitably, the rubber band snaps back. The old patterns re-emerge. The criticism returns. The vulnerability you shared is weaponized against you. You eventually reach a point of radical, painful acceptance. There is no combination of words that will make them hear you. There is no tone gentle enough to bypass their defenses. You realize you're speaking to a version of them that does not exist. Why does it take so long to leave? Why do we stay in the burning house? Because the bond with a toxic parent is not logical. It is biological. It is a trauma bond. When the source of your terror is also the source of your comfort, your nervous system becomes wired for chaos. You become addicted to the cycle of intermittent reinforcement. The rare moments of kindness release dopamine, while the cruelty releases cortisol. You stay, not because it feels good, but because it feels familiar. To survive this, many children develop a false self. This is the version of you that was constructed to keep the peace. You became the fixer, the therapist, the invisible one, or the perfect achiever. You buried your true needs to manage the emotional regulation of your parents. But as you enter adulthood, perhaps finding a healthy partner or becoming a parent yourself, the false self begins to crack. You start to wonder who you are when you aren't managing someone else's fragility. When you finally attempt to set a firm boundary, you're often met with a predictable defense mechanism known as DARVO, deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. Because an emotionally immature parent cannot tolerate the shame of being imperfect, they rewrite reality. They deny your memory. That never happened. They attack your character. You are too sensitive. And they cast themselves as the martyr after everything I've done for you. This leads to the phenomenon of the missing reasons. Parents often claim they have no idea why their child left. They truly cannot hold the reasons in their mind because doing so would shatter their self-image. They remember the conflict, but they delete the cause. This cognitive dissonance creates a wall that no amount of explanation can penetrate. For the adult child, the path to estrangement requires walking through the 4G: fear, obligation, and guilt. The fear of retaliation, the obligation to honor those who raised you, and the crushing guilt that whispers you are a bad person for choosing your own sanity. But fog is not love. It is control, masked as duty. When the cord is finally cut, the result is not the triumphant freedom movies depict. It is a quiet, ambiguous grief. You mourn the living. You grieve the parent you had, and you grieve the parent you deserved but never received. It is a complex cocktail of relief and sorrow. However, amidst the grief, something miraculous happens to the body. The chronic stomach aches subside. The shoulders drop away from the ears. The sleep deepens. This is somatic relief, the nervous system finally receiving the signal that the war is over. In this newfound silence, you begin the work of reparenting yourself. You learn to treat yourself with the compassion you were denied. You build an identity based on preference, not survival. If you're walking this path, know this. You did not walk away to punish them. You walked away to save yourself. No contact is not an act of aggression, it is an act of self preservation. It is the refusal to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. You are not heartless. You are simply a human being who finally decided that your life is worth more than a legacy of pain. There is a beautiful, quiet life waiting on the other side of the guilt. You are allowed to live it.